Hey, it's Kaylin, and in today's video coaching, I am talking about a topic that most of us have to deal with sooner or later: fear. And specifically, how to manage fear in a way so that it does not get in the way of achieving your goals. Let's face it, fear is a basic human emotion and everyone feels it. At some point in every life, a situation happens that causes us to come face to face with fear. Sometimes fear is totally justified, like when you step into a crosswalk and you see a car speeding right at you. This is an example of a healthy kind of fear because in that moment, your body releases a rush of adrenaline and your sympathetic nervous system kicks into action, arming you with the ability to get right out of harm's way. It's actually that kind of fear that we can thank for our being here today, because it kept our ancestors alive in circumstances that were a lot more treacherous than what we deal with in modern life right now. And those who survived passed their genes down, ensuring continuation of the species, and we can be thankful to them for the fact that we are here today. But I want to take a minute to explore the idea of fear in general. So most of us have some level of fear around potentially dangerous situations. Think how many of us have like this almost visceral fear of things like spiders and snakes. These fears go way back to our drive for survival, and they are deeply ingrained in that primordial animal brain that we have. And sometimes fears will grow to the point that they become a full-blown phobia, like a fear of flying, or even for some people, that fear of even leaving their home. There are a lot of therapeutic approaches that can dampen or eliminate those type of phobias, and professional help can go a long way toward conquering disabling fear. Then there's the other kind of fear. And that's the one I'm talking about today, where our human minds that are so capable of self-awareness and anticipation have developed an uncanny ability to create scenarios that drive fear into our very hearts. Unlike healthy survival instinct-driven fear, this anticipatory kind of fear has a potential to be paralyzing. And it is this kind of fear that is dangerous in a different way, because it can stop you in your tracks before you even get started working on your big dreams. It's not a life-threatening fear, but it is a life-limiting fear. So let's talk about how fear gets in the way of you achieving your goals. Number one, fear dwells on the worst possible outcome. Our brain's ability to anticipate the future also gives us an ability to imagine a variety of outcomes. When we're driven by fear, our minds wrap themselves around the worst case scenario, and we can get locked into that place. The longer you focus on the worst that can happen, the more real it becomes in your mind. Our thoughts have this very powerful ability to shape our perceptions, which in turn impact our reality. Number two is that fear drives perfectionism. Fear can lead to an overwhelming need to have a sense of control with everything that is going on around you. This need for control feeds a perfectionism that is underpinned by the fear of making a mistake and a drive to avoid the judgment of others. In the process, we lose our creativity and our productivity, and we can find ourselves paralyzed with an inability to move forward until we think the conditions are exactly right. Here's the challenge. When we're locked in fear, it can feel like the conditions will never be right. The third way that fear gets in your way is that fear weakens boundaries. Fear can lead to a need for safety and support that extends into this desire to avoid offending or upsetting others. You might find yourself going way out of your way to avoid confrontation, or you might put your needs below the needs of those around you. If you find that you have become fearful of speaking your truth, or you're really struggling when asked to give that yes or no answer, it's a pretty good indication that your boundaries have been compromised. And the fourth way that fear keeps you in your place is that fear discourages exploration. Fear really drives us to stick to the safe comfort of what we know. And the thought of trying something new or experimenting with change can be very intimidating when we come from this place of fear. This same fear causes us to pull inward, and it can manifest in many ways, like steering clear of opportunities to meet new people, avoiding travel, and not ever getting outside of that comfort zone. And lastly, fear can lead to self-medication. For some people, that fear of failure and judgment becomes an obsession. It permeates their lives to the point where it's this nagging, persistent pain that won't let them rest. When fear becomes this overwhelming, it can lead to escapism in the form of alcohol, drugs, excessive sleep, or hyper-focus on work. It's easy to see how fear can creep into every corner of our lives, eventually bringing productivity and positivity to a screeching halt. And fear can feel so real that it almost becomes a physical force that holds you rooted in place. If you've been there, I feel you. I know what it's like to let fear win because I spent years paralyzed by my own fear-driven inability to move forward. When I went through my divorce many years ago, things got really bad. And the worst possibility that I ever imagined could happen, happened. I ended up developing a deep-rooted fear of taking any chances and became so wrapped up dwelling in my fear that I seriously believed nothing would ever be different in the future. I withdrew from anything that was risky. I couldn't even bring myself to look for a challenging or new job. I avoided relationships. I steered clear of any situation where there was a chance of being exposed to new people. And I was in this very safe but depressingly limited life to the point that I was existing, not living. Once I learned to face my fear and start dealing with it head on, life did take a turn for the better. And if you are in that place of fear, that is what I want for you too. I want you to find that place where life starts getting better and you start to feel empowered to step fully into your courage. So let's talk about how you can manage your fear. It takes focused attention to conquer those fears that take over your thoughts. And the truth is, you don't really ever get rid of fear, but you do learn to live with it and go on to go after your dreams anyway, in spite of the fear. So in that spirit, I'm going to share 7 tips to develop a healthy relationship with fear so that you can keep moving forward and not let it keep you back. The first step is to not ignore your fear. You don't have to push fear down and hide it away to be successful. Instead, acknowledge what you feel and realize that it is totally okay to experience fear. Everybody does, and it makes you just as human as every other person that is on this planet. And when you acknowledge your fear, 3 things are going to happen. You're going to be able to assess the fear and ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? And you're going to be aware of it, but you're also going to understand the potential positive outcomes as well. The second thing is you can make a plan to start dealing with potential pitfalls along the way and approach the situation more proactively. And third, you can learn from it. Find other people who have succeeded despite similar fears and find out what did they do and how did they cope with that fear. You have an opportunity to follow in the footsteps of others who have conquered fear before you and have come out on the other side successfully. The second big thing to do when dealing with fear is to talk about it. Open up to the people around you about your fears. Take the risk of being vulnerable and ask a friend for advice or encouragement so you can keep focused on your mission. If you want someone objective to help you out, seek the advice of a mentor or a coach who works with people that have been in the similar situations to what you're dealing with now. The third thing is to embrace the present. Dwelling on a future that hasn't come yet can leave you very stressed out and depressed. Pull back and focus in on the present moment. A good exercise to help focus is this. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and repeat to yourself, this moment is perfect. And as you experience this moment arising, you are sitting in a moment that is perfect. No stress, nothing happening but you and your breath. And life is good in that present moment. The fourth way to stand steady in the face of fear is to practice relaxation, because fear has a way of keeping us completely uptight and on edge, not only mentally, but physically too. Muscle tension, headaches, and stomach issues are super common manifestations of stress, and if they're carried in the body for far too long, they have an impact. So consider things like deep breathing and meditation to awaken your parasympathetic nervous system, which will help calm and counteract stress in your body and your mind. Number 5 is to recognize and counter feelings of overwhelm, because focusing only on the big picture can feel super overwhelming. If you catch yourself getting caught up over the enormity of the big picture, pause and take a deep breath, and then determine your first step, and then the next, and the next after that. Breaking a big situation into manageable chunks is going to make the mission a lot simpler, and being able to focus on one step at a time is going to help break you away from that tendency to go into overwhelm. The sixth thing is to let go of perfectionism. And this was personally a really hard one for me, but it's been so gratifying. Here's the thing. Perfectionism creates so much unnecessary misery because we chase a standard that is impossible to maintain. Free yourself up from the idea that it's all got to be perfect, because I'm going to let you in on a secret. Good enough is an acceptable standard. So be kind to yourself and know that leaving room for improvement is a healthy and good thing. If you've created something good or good enough, go ahead and ship it. The last thing is to keep seeking your growing edge. Fear and discomfort often travel together, and I have become a fan of aversion therapy, where continued exposure to a fear gradually makes it more familiar and less threatening. I experienced this myself with flying, where I used to be so scared to get on a plane, and I was so dismayed when I discovered I had to fly a lot for my new job. After a few months of practically living on a plane and hanging out in airports, I started to learn, slowly but surely, to enjoy the experience. And it's really funny because now I look forward to traveling. So when you encounter something you fear, find a way to embrace it. If public speaking scares you, join a group like Toastmasters and make yourself speak in front of others. If you're afraid to share your writing, start a blog and put it out there. Everything improves with practice. And while it might feel torturous at first, you can use those steps above to help build your focus and your determination, and then go and do it anyway, even if it scares you. The good news is that you don't have to let fear dictate the quality of your life, and it does not have to limit your achievements. The bottom line is that fear exists, and we all encounter it sooner or later. Believe in the power that you have to achieve great things in the face of fear, because you do have the strength, the courage, and the perseverance to triumph over that fear. Go out there, be bold, be brave, dream big, and do good.